you.
Joining us down the show is Lee Spencer from FoxSports.com. Lee, how you doing?
Great. How are you guys?
We're doing well. We're doing well. Thanks for taking the time joining us on the show. We always appreciate it. Last night, we want to get into it because we were just talking about it. What did you think? Were you there last night, first of all, for the Hall of Fame?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
What'd you think?
Well, I thought it was pretty impressive. I mean, I think what you learned last night is there are still heroes in this country that are sports figures. And, you know, a lot of that is lost on us today when we look at baseball, look at football. I mean, I think you can pretty much count the heroes on your hands. But when you hear the stories and the testimonies of, you know, the greats of NASCAR, it's pretty remarkable. You know, Buddy Baker was holding back tears talking about his father, Buck. You know, the love that you heard for Leonard Wood, the Thomas boys that got up, Victor and Joel, when they talked about their dad. You know, you heard stories about heroes, and I just think that that's lost in today's society.
Well, I agree with you 100%. And I've said this, and I just want to put it out there to you. I was a little disappointed that they didn't show the Barney Hall, Ken Squire portion of the inductions last night live on television.
Well, I mean, I was watching some of the replay at home this morning while I was making breakfast, and it was, you know, they showed a little snippet of it.
Right.
They really covered it during the dinner, which, you know, preceded the awards show. Mm-hmm. So it was, you know, it was a really emotional moment, and, you know, seldom do you see the media applaud because, you know, you just don't do it in that setting. But when you have two icons and two people that meant so much to our business, you know, our profession, there are, you know, it was a pretty overwhelming response.
Has there been anybody outside of the teams and the owners of the tracks and the promoters of NASCAR than Barney Hall, what he has done? And I don't want to take anything away from Ken Squire because they were kind of tied at the hips a little bit for a long time. But Barney Hall is recognized as the signature voice of MRN all these years. Has anybody done more to help bring that sport to where it is today than Barney Hall?
Well, you know, his storytelling, if you've ever been around Barney, his storytelling off the air is even better than his stories he could tell on the air. And I thought it was really cool that they honored those two because it's who we all aspire to be. I mean, you guys are on the air. I'm going to be on Sirius NASCAR Radio at noon. I grew up, you know, I was telling Squire when the NMPA honored him last month, you know, that it's a situation where I can relate to what he went through because my father was on the air the night I was born.
Wow.
And so, you know, when you have people, you know, multi-generational broadcasters, it just, I think it even means more to you because you know about the nights that you stayed at the radio station or the troubles you encountered, what you did to keep the show on the air through good times and bad. And, you know, there's a lot more. We all take for granted what we hear over our speakers all the time.
Right.
You know, but you and I know what it takes to put the show on. And when you think about what they did and what the people behind the scenes, the producers, the directors, everything that it takes to put on a broadcast, it can be, you know, it's quite a production. And, you know, for them to be on top of their game as long as they have, and you know, Barney's still going strong. You know, Ken still does a lot of radio. It's, you know, it's really a reflection on how they've kept themselves relevant over the years.
Yeah, I can't imagine that many years as a broadcaster. Kirk and I have been doing this show here for 15 years. I can't imagine what it would be like to be in the business or the industry and do what they do for 40-plus years or whatever it is. It's just unbelievable. I want to ask you about the grandson of Cotton Owens. Did he not do one of the great jobs of just a family member getting up there and representing a family? And it looked like it was totally unscripted. I didn't see any notes up there. I just thought the way he addressed his thoughts for the family, the people that were involved with Cotton, and his personal feelings about his grandfather, I just thought it was remarkable.
Well, it was a incredible reflection. His sister Carrie was there, and this goes back to what I was speaking of earlier about heroes. Mm-hmm. They were, Cotton was their hero. Growing up in Spartanburg, South Carolina, and it was funny because you have Cotton, you have Bud Moore, you have David Pearson. They pushed hard to try to get the Hall of Fame in Spartanburg before it went to Charlotte, because that was, such a hub for racing back in the day. When you think about all the little dirt tracks, and, this was something that Joel Roberts, who am I thinking of? Joe Thomas, rather, said during his speech, was the fact that, it was tradition in the South that on Sundays you went to church and then you went to your local racetrack. We all remember 1979 when the Daytona 500 was first on TV, but, the years before that, NASCAR, although for, the rest of the world started in 1979 because that's when it was broadcast in the South, that was where you went on Sunday after church. For a lot of us growing up, in St. Louis, we had Lake Hill Speedway, and, we talked about that a little bit last night with Rusty. That's where his dad, Russ, was a champion. And, all these little short tracks, that's kind of the history. But, Carrie, who was Cotton's granddaughter, she said, from the minute that she was cognizant of what was going on in Spartanburg, she was always Cotton's granddaughter, which, made her related to a hero of that era and a hero of that town. And, for her, that was huge because that's how she was known. She wasn't Carrie. She was Cotton's granddaughter.
Right.
Lee Spencer is joining us from FoxSports.com. Lee, we're just a little less than a week away from cars out on the racetrack at Daytona, and the Gen 6 car been largely the biggest topic talked about heading into Daytona coming up. What are the big storylines as we head into Daytona aside from this new race car?
Well, I thought you were going to say besides Danica and Ricky Stenhouse, but
yeah, and then there's that, right? What a story to follow all year.
Exactly.
About 4 minutes, fellas.
It was crazy because people in the media were talking about going down to the acceleration weekend with the drivers this morning, just to go beat that into the ground. Which let's get back to the racing. Boys
really,
and girls.
please, right?
I think it's going to be really interesting. Some people don't think that there's going to be any bump drafting. Some people think it'll wait till maybe the last 2 laps. I was down for testing, and so I saw firsthand what happened when Dale Earnhardt Jr. didn't line up correctly with Marcos Ambrose and what a melee that caused. So when you look, across the board, I think that, Daytona will be exciting. There'll be a lot of buzz because this new car, and the new car looks great. If you want to get a really good perspective of all the 6 generations, I did a piece with Leonard Wood last week at the Wood Brothers shop, and the Wood Brothers were kind enough to have 5 of the 6 generations. Generation 2 was in the Hall of Fame, and so Leonard Wood took me through the 5 generations that were there, and then talked about Generation 2. But this is the 50th anniversary of Tiny Lund's win at Daytona with the Wood Brothers, and they're going to have that car down there as well. But when you think about the Wood Brothers and how historic of a moment that is, how many people, how many car owners actually raced and have in their possession 6 generations of NASCAR cars, and something dating back that far that 6 generations of winners. That's a pretty impressive feat.
Yep.
So I think when you look at from the car perspective, you look at the excitement of a new season. The changing in qualifying, all the new blood coming into the Nationwide Series. We're going to have the announcement this morning about, Darrell Bubba Wallace finally getting a ride, part of the D4D program, and him getting a full-time ride with Kyle Busch. getting some nationwide rides with Joe Gibbs Racing. That's going to come up. I don't think the nationwide series has been this stout probably in 15 years. So there's a lot to talk about.
Yeah, we've only got about 90 seconds left here, Lee. Let me ask you quickly, Kyle Larson. We broadcast a lot of sprint car races at RacinBoys. He is one of the greatest drivers, if not the greatest driver I've ever witnessed drive in all genres of motorsports. He's teamed up down there at Turner Scott Motorsports. Trent Owens is going to be his crew chief. Is there any buzz about Kyle Larson coming to the Nationwide Series?
Buzz, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
I mean, I can't wait for him to get here. I mean, I think he's going to be the greatest talent to come into our series since Jeff Gordon. So, I've really kept up with him because I really think he is the future. And he signed an 8-year contract with Ganassi, which a lot of young guys do because, it's quick security. I don't expect him to be there when he finally gets the Cup. I'll be shocked because he's going to want to be with the winner. And Chip hasn't proven me he can do that yet in NASCAR.
And there'll be plenty of people with the wallet out ready to sign him up for the big deal. I think it's just obvious that he's oozing with talent. Lee, thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate it, and hopefully we'll be able to talk to you here in a month or so and see your thoughts about how the season is going so far, okay?
Really appreciate it, guys. Take care. Have a great week.
All right. Lee Spencer, FoxSports.com, joining us here on RacinBoys.